Hello and welcome to cookingflavors.com. For today's recipe, we look at the preparation of a very traditional dish which is Kanchipuram Idli or Kancheevaram Idli. And here are the list of ingredients that are required for this. Now let me show you what the ingredients are. This is idli rice or idli arsi. I've taken 2 cups of idli rice and half a cup of urad dal. This is the dehusked urad dal, the whole urad dal. And this is half cup of chana dal or kadalaparapu or Bengal gram. And I have just about a handful or a fistful of poha. I've used this cup for measurement. The ratio for this is generally 4 is to 1 is to 1. That is 4 of idli rice, 1 of urad dal and 1 of chana dal, but I don't require that much, so I've taken just half of it. So 2 is to half is to half. That is the ratio for this. Now in this recipe, in this video, I've kept this video purposely a little long because I'm going to show you some tips and tricks of how to ferment your batter, the best grinding tips for your batter for it to ferment nicely and to get nice and soft idlis. This will apply for your regular idlis also. Especially for beginners, I thought this video will be a little useful, and especially if you're living in cold countries. So I'm giving you certain tips and tricks. Now I washed all of my ingredients thoroughly well. Make sure you wash them at least twice or thrice because we want to completely take off all the dust and polish from the rice and the dal. The first couple of times when you wash it, you will see that the water is a little turbid because of the polish from the ingredients. So the third time or the fourth time when you wash it, you'll be able to see the ingredient under the water. So it should be that clear when you wash it. And when you wash it, especially when you live in cold countries, you do get hot water in your taps, but don't wash it with hot water. Wash it with plain water or room temperature water or even cold water. So that's the tip number 1. Now see, if I show you, you're able to see the urad dal under the water. It should be that clear, at least a little bit clear. See the chana dal also, you can see it nicely well. Now I've just taken enough water. I'm going to soak in the same water which I'll be using for grinding. That is to take the cooking water. I've soaked the ingredients nicely for about 8 to 10 hours. I've soaked it overnight. I'm going to do the grinding in the morning. I always prefer to grind my ingredients separately because each of them have a different grinding consistency. First, we'll grind the urad dal. So make sure I'm adding in the entire urad dal and we'll grind them. Another tip number 2 is make sure you wash your the grinder and the stone in nice cold water preferably. That's another tip for fermenting your batter because we don't want to heat up the batter while grinding too much. So, and grinders, wet grinders, that is a stone grinder, is the best choice for a perfect idli and dosa. Do not use a mixie. If you have the option of a grinder, always make use of a wet grinder. Now we'll grind this urad dal. We don't add too much of water as it's grinding. Just sprinkle a little bit of water. We want a nice rolling, a buttery ball kind of a consistency for this urad dal. Now we'll see how we are grinding this urad dal. Now see, it's been around 5 minutes. It'll take roughly about 15 minutes for it to attain that consistency. I'm just adding little bit of water to grind this urad dal. Again, I'm telling you, these are all just tips to for beginners especially. Now see, our urad dal has been ground perfectly well. When you take a little bit of it, it should not be grainy at all. It should be perfectly nice and smooth and a buttery ball kind of a consistency. If you're a pro, kindly skip all this and directly go to the preparation of the Kanchipuram Idli recipe. Now we'll switch off the grinder and transfer it into a bowl. Now my urad dal has batter has been transferred. See, it should be nice and thick. It should not be runny at all. Now what we'll do is the next thing we'll be adding in the chana dal. Chana dal doesn't take much time to grind. It's like it soaks very fast and it grinds very fast. So just about 2 or 3 minutes itself will suffice. And when you're grinding chana dal, make sure it's a little grainy so that when you eat your idlis, it will be nice and tasty. Just about 2 or 3 minutes. Now, if you see, chana dal batter is also ground well. I've added it along with the urad dal batter. Now I'm adding in the entire rice. Along with the rice, I'll be adding in the soaked poha or the aval. Aval just helps your idlis to be nice and soft. Aval doesn't require much soaking time. Even half an hour before grinding, you can soak your poha or your aval. If you want, you can also add in fenugreek seeds for better fermentation. But fenugreek seeds actually add more color to your dosas, but since I'm only doing idlis, I've skipped fenugreek seeds here today. Now I will transfer this also into the same bowl, and we'll have to mix this nicely. The next tip is always make sure you use your hand. Do not use a ladle to mix the batter. Now I'm adding in the required salt. If your hand, with your hand, if the batter ferments really well, you can skip adding the salt. You can add the salt after the fermentation is done. But for me, if I add salt, it helps, it aids in good fermentation. So when you're mixing the batter, use a nice aerating pattern, that is, try to incorporate air and fluff up the batter nicely, so your batter will ferment nicely and at least be nice and soft. So make use of your hand while mixing the batter, and I'm just cleared up all the mess, and we'll rest this for about 8 to 10 hours. Preferably keep it in a warm place. If you're in a very cold country, make sure you put it in the oven and just switch on the oven light. Remember, don't switch on the oven, just switch on the oven light alone. So it will take around 8 to 10 hours of fermentation. We'll let this rest nicely, and we'll up once it ferments, we'll see how to do the Kanchivaram Idli process. Now see, it took around 10 hours for me. I've just took a little bit of the batter and tasted for salt. The salt was just right for me. It has fermented. The batter has fermented nicely. Now we need to do some seasoning for this batter, so I'm not going to take the entire batter. I'm going to transfer a little bit into another bowl, and we'll do the seasoning because I don't want to season the entire batter and keep the leftover in the refrigerator. It might get spoiled, so we'll take a little bit and we'll transfer it into a bowl. Now today I'm going to use a cooker bowl, that is the bowls that come with your pressure cooker to make the idlis. You can also use the regular idli molds also, but the traditional Kanjivaram idli is nice and big and you make slices of it. That's how it's done. So I'm going to use this today. Alternatively, you can also use something like a steamer plate like this and use small cups or bowls like this, and you can make small idlis like this. But today I'm just going to use the cooker plate. We'll grease this nicely with a little bit of oil and ghee. Ghee gives a nice taste and flavor, but it's left up to you. And because idli is going to be nice and big and thick, so we don't want it to stick to the bowl, so we'll grease it nicely with a little bit of ghee and oil. Now I'm transferring a little bit of the batter. The next tip here is when you are pouring for idlis, don't mix it thoroughly well. Just fluff it up on top. That's another tip to get nice and soft idlis. So we'll take a little bit of the batter and we'll transfer it into this bowl here. Now we'll do the seasoning. In a kadai, I've added a little bit of oil and ghee, and I'm frying a little bit of cashew nuts for the idlis. We'll keep this aside. And in the same oil, we'll add in whole black peppercorns. We'll wait for the peppercorns to splutter nicely. It will give a nice taste once it splutters. And I'm adding in a teaspoon of chana dal, which is totally optional. And we'll fry this well. Now I'm adding in just a teaspoon of urad dal. Both chana dal and urad dal are optional. It will give a nice taste when you eat it along with the idlis. Now I'm adding in just about half a teaspoon of cumin seeds and just a pinch or so of asafoetida or hing or perangayam. Now I've switched off the stove. After switching it off, I'm adding in a few curry leaves. You can add this directly. That is raw into the batter, but I like to just toss it a little. That's why I told you I've switched off my stove. And after the curry leaves, I'm adding in nice pieces of ginger. Instead of ginger, you can also add sukku or the dry ginger, or you can use a combination of both the ginger and the dry ginger. But I'm just, the traditional one uses the dry ginger, but I'm only using fresh ginger pieces here. Now all the seasoning is done. We'll transfer the entire seasoning into the batter. Now there are different versions, different combinations of ingredients that can be used for a Kanjeevaram idli. So this is my grandmom's recipe, tested, tried, and tasted recipe. So do try this out also. I'm adding in a few cashew nuts here, and we'll leave the rest of the cashew nuts for the garnishing. Now I'm adding in the best taste comes with the freshly grated coconut. I'm adding in a little bit of coconut. That's why I said I didn't want to season the entire batter, because the coconut might spoil your batter. That's why I've taken off a little batter. Make sure to add in just freshly grated coconut, and we'll mix this batter nicely well. Now it's ready to be transferred into the greased bowl. As I told you, I've greased my cooker bowl nicely. I'm just placing a few cashew nuts on the bowl, and then we transfer the entire batter into this bowl. Now the seasoned batter goes into the greased bowl. Make sure you don't fill it up to the brim, because you need to give it some space for the idlis to rise up well. This will take a minimum of 20 minutes for it to perfectly get done, because the idli is nice and big and thick. So what do you do? How do you test it? Just take a knife, and when you poke it in the middle or insert it into the middle, it should come out nice and clean. Very similar to testing your cake. It's something like that. Another tip for making your idlis is, make sure you have your steamer patram, your vessel ready. I'm just using a pressure pan today. I placed a stand and added enough water, and the water should come to a nice rolling boil. Only then you have to place your prepared idli batter into the cooker. So it will take about a minimum of 20 minutes. In the 10th minute, again, we'll check. Do not place the weight if you're using a pressure cooker. If you're using an ordinary bowl, okay. Now at the 10th minute, if you see, it's still sticking to the knife, so it requires another around 8 to 10 minutes. We'll wait until then. Now since it's been a long time, check if there's enough water in the cooker. Otherwise, add some more water. Now it took me exactly about 22 minutes, 20 to 23 minutes for it to get perfectly done. Always make sure you let your idlis rest, cool down nicely, and only then take it. If you take it out immediately after it's out of the cooker, it will definitely stick to the bowl. So another tip here is, wait for your rest your idlis, allow it to cool down a little, and then grease it out nicely. See, the idli has risen nicely well. So after it cools down, we'll take out the idlis. Now I allowed it to cool down, and now what we'll do is we'll transfer the idlis. Take a spatula or any spoon. This is a idli spoon, and just run it along the side, so that when you invert it, it comes out easily. This applies even for normal idlis. All the tips that I've given here is applies for any kind of idlis. Now see, I've inverted it and comes and has it has come out clean. Now we need to make slices of this and enjoy it with any chutney of your choice. And there goes the slices. So I've made 8 slices here, and I've made some tomato chutney and a coconut chutney. See, it's nice and soft. A perfect Kanchipuram Idli is ready. You can serve it with any chutney of your choice, and don't forget the favorite idli mulaga pudi also. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and post in your comments and suggestions. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this recipe today. Do not forget to click on the notification bell symbol to get immediate updates as soon as we upload our videos. Also subscribe to our new Tamil channel, Samayal Suvai. Till we see you again with another new and interesting recipe. Thank you and happy cooking.